All right, for more insight on the report, let's speak now with Dr. Ian Fry, Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights in the context of climate change at the United Nations. He joins us this morning from Canberra. Dr. Fry, thank you very much for your time. First of all, this report clearly highlights the impact of climate change on children's rights to life, survival, and development. Could you elaborate for us on how these rights have been compromised?
Well, there are many rights that have been compromised, particularly by climate change. Work done by UNICEF suggests that over 820 million children are currently exposed to heat waves. 400 million children are exposed to cyclones. And the real tragedy is that a lot of people are being displaced as a consequence of climate change, and 42% of people displaced by climate change events are below the age of 18. So their rights are being dramatically affected by the impacts of climate change.
And when we talk about the accountability and where the action for this needs to lie, it's with governments.
Yes, well, it's governments and business. Both governments, have made, pledges to under the Paris Agreement to reduce their emissions, and that's a critical aspect of that. And also they have human rights obligations under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. But business also has a key role to play, and this is highlighted in this report that's just been released, that business have a critical role to play in protecting the rights of children, and also, to do their bit as far as reducing emissions from, greenhouse gas polluting industries.
Could you give us some examples of how should business comply with such standards to, protect children's rights from climate-related harm?
Well, within the sort of basic, considerations of what business should do, the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights has produced a sort of a guidelines for business and human rights. So it sets out a sort of checklist for business to review their operations, to consider what impacts their operations are having on children. And this may be related to child labour. It may be related to, specific environmental pollution issues that they're creating that will ultimately have an effect on children. So there are lots of different sorts of areas where business can lift its game to protect the rights of children.
Could you give us some practical examples, perhaps, of countries that are sort of putting these sorts of things into action so we can understand how it works in practical terms?
Well, this is a challenge, to really find, governments that are really taking action on climate change. I think, generally some governments are doing a lot of work, to reduce their emissions and to bring corporations into account. So, for instance, the European Union have now setting standards for business on reporting of their operations and the implications for climate change. The United States, through the Biden administration, is doing this through their environmental and social governance procedures, which are reporting requirements for government, for business to, address their climate change impacts. But I think that the critical aspect of this report that's just come out is that, a lot of the international community has ignored the fact that there are enormous impacts on children, and this needs to be highlighted and brought to the attention of governments and business. And this is a critical part of what this report will do.
Indeed. And Dr. Fry, the reception of the guidance has been sort of mixed, with some expressing concerns about that it's gone too far, while others feel it falls short. What can be done to ensure that the guidance remains impactful while accommodating different perspectives?
I think the report is fairly, it's in a language, that's produced by the UN. And I think it needs to be put into a language that's easily understandable. And I understand there will be a child-friendly version of the report coming out later next month. And so this will be a critical part of bridging and understanding what this report is saying. I think it's in a standard format to say these are the basic rights that are within the Convention on the Rights of the Child and how these rights apply to environmental issues. I mean, it's very sort of bureaucratic language, I think, and I think it needs to be worked into a way that everybody can understand it. And I look forward to, different versions of this report so that everybody can understand the connections between rights of children and the environment. And I agree, it probably doesn't go far enough. It really doesn't state clear obligations on governments and business to really take strong action. So I think more needs to be done.
And ultimately, of course, the proof will be in the pudding as to how much teeth this has in governments and businesses complying with it as well, won't it?
Yes, and this is part of the issue is, do we need to develop greater compliance measures to make sure that, governments and business, adhere to these requirements? And this is a critical issue. And as your report said, that Montana court case is quite a critical sort of milestone in having children go to court and question the standards set by governments about their environmental record. And I think we'll see a lot more of that. I think we'll see a lot more, litigation being brought by children to the courts around their rights and protecting their rights.
All right, Dr. Fry, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your time and your insight this morning. Dr. Ian Fry, UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights in the context of climate change.